my mouth, O God, and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable. Be acceptable not in the sight of the person that we are sitting with this morning. Be acceptable not in the sight of our significant other or our best friend. Be acceptable not even in the sight of our major professors or even the preacher, but in your sight, O God, the one who is truly our rock, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. Somebody said, wait a minute, why are we talking about the cross? Because last Sunday was Easter. We need to continue to be celebrating Easter, which we are. As we continue to celebrate Easter, when we go back and begin to look at what did Jesus mean when He said, take up your cross and follow me. This passage is that very famous passage where Jesus takes the disciples away. It's been about a year and a half now into the ministry of Jesus. And Jesus wants to get the disciples alone. Jesus wants them to reflect upon His ministry. Jesus wants them to reflect to Jesus, you know, what do people see me? How do people see me? What do they think about what I'm doing? And so He asks them a question. Who do people say that I am? Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're Elijah. Matthew is the only one that mentions Jeremiah. Some say you're one of the other prophets. Then Jesus puts the ball back into His followers' courts. And He asks, now who do you say that I am? You have seen me for about a year and a half. I've been preaching, I've been teaching, lives have been touched, people have been healed. Who do you say that I am? And it's Simon. Simon who jumps up and makes that affirmation of faith. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus blesses him and changes his name. As you read on in this passage, you'll see that it says that Jesus begins to show. Jesus begins to show the disciples. There's a very definite turning point in the life of Jesus' ministry at this particular juncture with this Christian. For you see, up until then, Jesus had been wandering the countryside. He had been preaching, he had been teaching, he had been touching the lives of people in very positive and powerful ways. He had even healed a few people. But it's from this point on that as you continue to follow the story through Matthew, Jesus sets his sight to Jerusalem. Jesus is going to Jerusalem, and there he knows he's going to have to face the center of Judaism. He's going to Jerusalem because that's the very seat of religiosity. That's the very center of the religious Judaism of the day. He's going to Jerusalem not only to encounter those of the Jewish faith and the leaders, the scribes and the Pharisees, but he's also going because that's also a very central part of where the Roman Empire is established in Judah at this time. And so Jesus not only shows, but He says, if you're going to be my disciple, you must pick up your cross. Pick up your cross and follow me. So let's reflect upon that. We've celebrated Easter. We know the end of the story. We know that Jesus went into Jerusalem. We know that there He was crucified. We know that He was buried. We know that He was raised from the dead. So we know the end of the story. Let's go back now and say, what did Jesus mean? What did Jesus mean when He said, pick up your cross? Well, for me to answer that question for myself, since it was reported in Matthew, I wanted to go back and finish reading Matthew. You see, a lot of times when we read Scripture, what we do is we take a little bit from Matthew, and we may take something from Paul, and we may take something from one of the minor prophets, we may take something from Genesis, and we jam it all together and try to make a point of the story. But you know, there's not. There's only one gospel. Only one God. Next time somebody asks you the question, how many gospels are there? Don't say 4. Say 1. There's one gospel. Gospel means the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ. And it's the good news of Jesus Christ that is the gospel, but it's that good news according to Matthew, according to Mark, according to Luke, according to John. It's not 4 gospels. It's one gospel, told in 4 different ways. So what did Matthew have Jesus say? When in Matthew it's recorded where Jesus says, if you're going to be my disciple, you've got to pick up your cross. What does it mean to pick up your cross? According to what Jesus said in Matthew. Let me submit to you 4 stories, 4 examples that you'll find from this passage in the 16th chapter of Matthew to the end of Matthew, which I believe are examples of what Jesus meant when He said, if you're going to be my disciple, you've got to pick up your cross. What I believe is the purpose of the cross for Jesus, according to Matthew. That first story, the first situation you will find is in Matthew as you begin to look at the 17th chapter. In verses 14 through 24 in the 17th chapter, you've got Jesus encountering the crowd, and there's a man whose son has a demon. Let me read some of it to you. When they came to the crowd, a man came to him, Jesus, and knelt before Jesus and said, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic, and he suffers terribly. He often falls into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, but they could not cure him. And Jesus answered to the disciples, you faithless and perverse generation, how much longer must I be with you? How much longer must I put up with you? Bring him here to me. I want to suggest that one of the things that Jesus meant when He said, take up your cross, is that we must become actively involved with contemporary society. That if a person is going to carry the cross of Jesus, that this is a story that tells us that we must be actively involved, actively engaged with contemporary society. Actively working with those that we come in contact with day in and day out. You know, I read this passage, and I don't know whether it's a lack of faith on their part, but just a lack of wanting to get involved. It's not very much fun watching a person have an epileptic fit. I know our daughter is epileptic, and the first time I ever witnessed that, there was that in the very bowels of my being just came unglued because of watching that. And I wonder if it wasn't so much they didn't have the faith, is that they didn't want to become involved with that situation. How many situations can we think of this past week that we may have walked around on the other side, that we may have walked on by, that we may have thought, oh, I hope somebody else deals with that situation?